On this 15th episode of Head Speaks, I talk about the movie Very Bad Things. I continue the third part of my 4-part retrospective on my kids. I talk with a buddy, the Irredeemable Shag, about comics from the late 80s or early 90s, plus a few more items. Plus, stay tuned for after end credits song, when I have a very special guest come on and my daughter Alexis talks a few minutes. Stick around and enjoy the episode.
Aw, yeah. Feels good. The time has come to enjoy myself.
Hello, greetings and hi there. This is the Head Speaks podcast, a proud member of the Headcast family. I am your host, Aaron Moss, also known as Brother Head. Welcome to Head Speaks, where I'll be talking about comics, movies, and recent news items that interest me. Basically anything that strikes my fancy.
Warning! Warning!
This podcast may not be family friendly. Head Speaks may contain adult language, adult content, fantasy violence, and nudity. You have been warned. The young, stupid, and easily offended may not want to listen to this headcast. In other words, parental guidance is more than suggested.
And welcome back to our fabulous 15th episode of Head Speaks. As you know, I'm a little haphazard with my podcasts when I release them. I'm going to try to get a little bit more of a schedule, if you will. Currently I'm running 3 podcasts, as you may know or may not know. I have my G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast. I have this one, Head Speaks. And then I'm also doing Task Force X. My plan is the first week of the month, I'm going to try to release an episode of G.I. Joe. The second week of the month, I'm going to try to release an episode of Head Speaks. And then the third week, I'm going to try to release an episode of Task Force X. And then the fourth week, Head Rests. Until I come out with my new podcast, Sleepwalking, the Sleepwalker podcast. That's just a little joke. Anyways, that's what I'm going to try to do. Don't hold me to it. Don't shoot me if it don't work out. But that's my plans. So let's go and see how it works out. I'm going to go ahead and play some podcasts I listen to, some promos. Yeah, it's my son Grayson sitting here with me again today. And then we're back with the first segment today, A Little Head, where I continue with the third part of my 4-part series on my children. Stay tuned. Head Speaks will be back after these important messages.
Wherever there's trouble, G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there. It's G.I. Joe against Cobra and Destro, fighting to save the day. He never gives up, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there.
Attention, Joes. This is General Hawk. I have an important mission for you. I need you to listen to G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast. It's a monthly podcast where Aaron Moss, codename Head, and 2 other Joes, Ryan Daly and Kyle Benning, will be reporting on the comic book G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. Previously published by Marvel, currently being published by IDW Comics. We'll also cover the special missions, the yearbooks, order battles, etc. To hear their message, report to GIJoe.headspeaks.com or iTunes or Stitcher Radio. You can get further information at Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. All under G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast. Dismissed.
Now we know!
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast is a proud member of the Headcast family.
The He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe.
Hello, I'm Albie.
And I'm Heather.
And we do the Quantum Leap podcast. It can be found at quantumleappodcast.com and also on iTunes.
We are starting at the beginning of Quantum Leap and going through all the episodes. This is my first time watching, and Albie has seen them during their original run.
In each podcast, we talk about the overall thoughts of each episode. We do an episode recap if you haven't seen them in a while, just to refresh your memory. And then we do a detailed plot discussion.
And we also have some great interviews.
Scott Bakula, I remember being very, very generous of spirit and very, very kind to his fellow actors. It was my first kiss ever. So I am getting to kiss Scott Bakula on screen. And everybody involved with it was just terrific. And I'm always amazed that people come up to me and remember that episode and can quote things from it that I can't even quote.
So if you're a leaper, it'd be great if you came and joined us. And if you've never heard of Quantum Leap, it's maybe a good time to start watching it because you have a podcast to go along with it.
So please give our podcast a listen, and hopefully you like us and stick around.
Go to quantumleappodcast.com to listen to new episodes.
And now back to Head Speaks. And now we're back. Now, guess what? It's time for A Little Head. And today, we're going to talk about my third child. Her name is Alexis Grace Moss. She was born April the 19th, 2008. As I may have said, she has a different mother than the boys. Her mother is Michelle Moss. I'll talk about her in a later podcast. Here today, we're going to talk about Alexis. Michelle's pregnancy with Alexis was less traumatic than Renee's was with the boys. She did have some high blood pressure. She was working at the school Institute of Technology in Clovis, California. They were a bit of asshats there. The administration had their head up their ass. Caused her some distress. So her blood pressure was a little high. Her weight didn't help matters any. So she was off the last couple of months before Alexis was born. We were going to try to do a natural birth. It was a week or so before Alexis's due date, and Michelle talked to her doctor. She's like, well, I can't do this anymore. I'm always tired. I'm sore. I'm ready to give birth. So they went in and tried to induce labor. Alexis was ready to come. She started coming out, but Michelle wasn't dilating. So after going all through the night, going through labor, not producing, not dilating enough for the baby to come out, they saw Alexis' head was starting to crown. So they said, you know what? Let's go and do a C-section. So they cut her open and pulled Alexis out. Can't remember if I said this for the other two, but both the boys were C-sections also. So up to this point, all my kids are through C-section. While Michelle was pregnant with Alexis, Michelle's diet consisted mainly of Taco Bell. I think it was the bean burrito. I was always going to Taco Bell because she was always craving the burritos from Taco Bell. Also, before Alexis, Michelle liked horror movies and creepy stuff like that. Halloween was her favorite holiday. After Alexis was born, it broke something in her. She's more emotional. She can't stand zombies now. In fact, a funny little story. We was watching Comic Book Men, and on there, Brian has he's got a niece that's got Downs or some sort of disability like that, and he loves her to death. And I guess they watch horror movies together, like zombie stuff. So on his arm, he had a tattoo of her, an image of her as a zombie on a tricycle, put on his arm. My wife saw that and it gave her nightmares about it. Just a tattoo on a guy's arm about a child looking like a zombie. So, since Alexis was born, Michelle was a lot more fragile, if you will, regarding horror movies and what have you. But Alexis was born, it was like 7-something in the morning, 7:30 I think it was, in the morning, on the 19th of April, 2008. When Michelle was pregnant with Alexis, we'd go in to get the sonograms done. And there was one sonogram, when they were looking, they said they could see her hair just waving. It was so long. What brings me back to Alexis's birth. I was there in the room when they were doing the C-section. They pulled her out, and one of the doctors said, "Wow, she's a pudgy little thing, or a chubby little thing, or something like that." I'm like, "Wow, she's got a lot of hair," or maybe it's vice versa. I forget now. It's been 7 years. But yeah, either me or the doctor made a comment about her being chunky. The other one made a comment about her having a lot of hair. So my wife could imagine like a little troll, fat little troll being born. But Alexis, they pulled Alexis out, cleaned her up, and everything went fine. She was born perfectly healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and that was my first daughter. I was happy as a clam. Her parents were there. My boys were there. My best friend Dean was there. Her friends were there. It was good times to be had by all. As a baby, Alexis was very clingy to her mom. For the first couple years of her life, she wouldn't let me put her down hardly. If Michelle wasn't home, she would fuss and cry. It made me feel like chopped liver, basically. And that happened for the first few years. Alexis was formula fed, going back real quick. Michelle tried breastfeeding her, but she couldn't produce enough to feed Alexis, so we just stuck with the bottle and gave her formula. Just throw that out there. She really loved her pacifiers also, much like her oldest brother Tim. Don't remember if I said this last episode. Steve, he didn't care so much for the pacifiers, whereas Alexis and Tim did. In fact, she was always losing her pacifiers. I should have took stock in the company. He was buying so many damn pacifiers. But she'd always lose her pacifiers. And then she'd start fussing, so we had to get her another one. And then, before we knew it, every time we turned around, she wouldn't have a pacifier. And she would suddenly she'd have one. Me and Michelle was thinking maybe she was hiding them somewhere around the house. She had a stash of pacifiers. In fact, even after she stopped using them, we were still finding pacifiers popping up. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, when we moved, we even found a couple several years after she stopped using pacifiers. Because, the little shit would stash them all over the house, and we think she's lost them, so we have to get more, and next thing we know, she's got one in her hand that she didn't have before, so... Oh, crazy kids. But as I said a few minutes ago, first few years of her life, I was chopped liver. She didn't really want much to do with her daddy. And then, when she got a little bit older... I don't know, maybe 4 or so, she started coming around to Daddy and liking Daddy a little bit. And now, like I say, she's 7 years old. She's Daddy's little mini-me. Everything I like, she seems to like. Again, I'm not a big football fan. I'm not a big sports guy. But I do like the Chicago Bears. And she likes the Chicago Bears, too. Pretty much militant. I mean, we were at a local Walmart one day, and... a team nearby, Fresno State has a college team called the Bulldogs. And we was at Walmart, and they had some Bulldog stuff hanging up. And my daughter looked, she's like, "That's not Bears." Well, no, that's the local football team, so that's fine. No, they got to have the Bears up there, Daddy. So, yeah, she's very, very militant about, people should like the Bears, and there's no other choice in the matter. It's kind of funny. No, you gotta like the Bears. Again, she's into comic books, superhero stuff. She likes the old G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s. Smart kid. She loves the old Dozers, or what's known as the Adam West Batman from 1960s, 66 Batman. She loves that old show. She's not big into cartoons. Like I say, most of the shows she watches the live action shows on like Disney and Disney and Nicktoons and all this. She likes Henry Danger. She really loves Dog with a Blog. The live action one she likes more than the actual cartoons. But she likes He-Man. She loves She-Ra. She's got a very active imagination. As I've said on my other podcast, Firestorm is one of my 2 favorite heroes. And she's always, claiming the virtues of Firestorm. In fact, she's here recently taken to try to make her own comic called Fireburst, which she said is Firestorm's daughter. And again, she likes Firestorm because I like Firestorm. And she doesn't quite understand the complexities of Firestorm, that he's, two people merged in one body. So one day she was like, yeah, I'm Fireburst, because she likes pretending she's this character also. She's like, I'm Fireburst, I'm Firestorm's daughter. I'm like, are you Firestorm's daughter, or are you one of, I don't remember how I phrased it now. Like, Firestorm's made of two different people. He's Ronnie Raymond and Professor Stein. Whose daughter are you? I'm Firestorm's. Oh, okay. She's like, who'd be my mommy? Who's Firestorm like? Who's Firestorm like? Well, more than likely, Firestorm, I'd have to say Firehawk. But anyways, that's my daughter Alexis. Like I say, she's into superheroes, G.I. Joe, Disney princesses. She likes her dolls. So she is my little mini-me, but she's also into dolls. In fact, that's what my wife calls her, is my mini-me, because she looks a lot like her daddy. And at times she looks a lot like her mommy, though. But she acts like her daddy. She's my little mini-me. She loves me. I love her. And like I say, things that I like, she likes, just by osmosis of me liking it. She's currently in 2nd grade. They tested her the other day, and she's reading at 4th grade level. Again, just like her daddy, a little reader. And that's another thing. She likes reading. She's doing really good in school. She's good at math. She's pulling pretty much straight A's in school. Her only problem is she likes talking a little bit too much, kind of like her brother Steven. Steven has that same problem. But no, she's a good kid. She's got a heart of gold. There's just one new little girl in school, and so Alexis took upon herself to play with her and be her friend. In fact, Alexis, again, like her brother Steve, Alexis makes friends wherever she goes. We was out somewhere one day, and there's a little girl, and Alexis went to her, "Hi, you want to be my friend? Okay, you're my friend now." So yeah, it was kind of funny. She's really cute and adorable. But that's all I really got to say about Alexis for this episode. Again, she's my little princess, my little mini-me. I love her to death. But that's Alexis. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back with you guys for my next episode, my next section. Head Speaks will be back after these important messages.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mike.
Man, it sure is great to be back from crisis to crisis after all this time. It's been a busy year for both of us.
For very different reasons.
But now we're ready to cover the post-Death and Return Superman stories.
Yeah, and we're about to start the books that came out in 1994, which means that we have so much to look forward to, like Bizarro's World.
The Battle for and Fall of Metropolis.
Superman Doomsday, Hunter, Prey.
Worlds Collide.
Well, you're looking forward to that one.
Oh, bite me.
0 Hour.
0 Month.
And right there at the end, we have Dead Again.
And don't forget the Elseworlds annuals as well.
Well, most of them anyway.
Yeah, some of those really did suck, don't they?
But From Crisis to Crisis is back. New episodes will drop on Thursday, just like before.
You can find the show at the Superman homepage, www.supermanhomepage.com, as well as at the Superman Podcast Network, which is at www.supermanpodcastnetwork.com.
And we also have a Facebook page that you can like by going to www.facebook.com/FromCrisisToCrisis, a Superman Podcast.com. Is it .com on there? No, it's not. No .com. Forget that.
So From Crisis to Crisis is back, folks, and better than ever.
Well, I'm better than ever. You need some work.
Oh, shut up.
No, you 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 shut up.
From Crisis to Crisis, a Superman podcast, covering the post-crisis adventures of Superman, 1/2 month at a time. Every Thursday at www.supermanhomepage.com and www.fortressofbaileytude.com.
And now back to Head Speaks. At the Movies with Head. This episode, in this segment of At the Movies with Head, we're going to talk about a movie from 1988. Sorry, try that again. A movie from 1998 called Very Bad Things. It stars Cameron Diaz, Jon Favreau, Daniel Stern, Jeremy Piven, Christian Slater, Leland Orser, and Gene Triplehorn. Directed by Peter Berg, based on a book called Very Bad Things by Gene Brewer. And the plot of the movie.
Spoilers!
Again, this is going to contain spoilers for a movie from 1998 called Very Bad Things. If you haven't watched it yet, if you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead. If you got it, if you haven't seen it in a while, maybe throw it in and watch it real quick. I'll wait for you. Otherwise, we're going to get ahead going in. And again, this contains spoilers. Very Bad Things. It's considered a dark comedy. So go ahead and throw it in and watch if you got it. So I'll give you just a minute. You may want to pause the podcast. Okay, and... Okay, we're back. So, let's get to the plot of Very Bad Things. Kyle Fisher, who is played by Jon Favreau, yes, that Jon Favreau of Marvel fame now, is getting married to Laura, a.k.a. the bitch from hell or Bridezilla. Again, Laura is played by Cameron Diaz. Him and his friend Charles Moore, played by Leland Orser, are waiting right before the wedding and thinking about recent events. With recent events, him and his friends are going to Vegas for a bachelor party. His friends are the previously mentioned Charles Moore, Robert Boyd, played by Christian Slater, and brothers Adam and Michael Burko, who's played by Daniel Stern and Jeremy Piven. In Vegas, they do some drinking, they do some drugs, they get a stripper, all the stuff you do at a bachelor party in Vegas. Michael, one of the brothers, pays extra, and he takes the girl into the bathroom and he starts fucking the living shit out of her. He throws her against the wall, just banging her. During the activities, he accidentally slams her against the wall, and her head hits a towel hook, killing her. Blood all over. Well, not all over, just, pulling up in the back of her head where she ran into the hook at. So he freaks out, tells his friends, and they kind of argue over what to do with the body. Adam insists that they call the police. Boyd says they should take her and bury her ass out in the desert. As they're talking about this, security shows up because of a lot of the noise they were making. He talks to them. They patch things over. They go, we're sorry for the noise, we're sorry for the mess, and we'll pay for it, blah, blah, blah. And as the security guard starts to leave, he happens to look in a mirror and he sees in the bathroom hooker corpse laying there, blood pulling up under her head. He goes over, checks on her, finds out that she's dead, starts telling these guys to call the police. Boyd panics, stabs him, pushes him back in the bathroom, and the guys hold the bathroom door shut, letting the guard bleed out in the bathroom. Now the bathroom's a mess. Once the guy's dead, they dismember both bodies, and they bury them both out in the desert. Because, fuck, what else are you going to do with a dead body in Vegas? Back home, Adam starts becoming more distraught and paranoid over the killings, especially when he finds out in the local paper that the security guard had kids. Meanwhile, Boyd starts showing some psychotic behavior and a fascination with violence and death. At the rehearsal dinner, Adam starts cracking under the pressure, and him and his brother argue about what happened. Pissed off at his brother over the horror deal, Michael tries to ram his minivan and accidentally kills Adam as he steps in front of his van to protect it. Before he dies in the hospital, Adam whispers something to his wife, while Michael starts slowly going insane over his brother's death. Lois, who's Adam's wife, played by, as I said earlier, Gene Triplehorn, calls his friends together and demands to know what happened in Vegas. Kyle panics and says that Adam slept with a prostitute, and it wasn't the first time. Boyd, being the psycho that he is, doesn't think that she believes the story. So after he convinces the friends to leave, with Adam and Lois's kids and dog, he ends up killing Lois. He then gets the gang to come back over, shoots Michael, and then concocts an alibi about a love triangle between the brothers and Lois. Meanwhile, Kyle and Laura, are named beneficiaries of Adam's estate and is also awarded the kids and the dog. Due to debt and Adam not keeping up with his life insurance payments, the couple is denied the $500,000 life insurance policy. Kyle breaks down and tells Laura the entire story. Laura says that she isn't letting anything ruin her fucking wedding day. At the wedding, Boyd confronts Kyle about the life insurance money. Not believing Kyle about there not being any money, the two men fight until Laura shows up and saves the day by beating the crap out of Lloyd, leaving him for dead. During the ceremony, they realize that Boyd still has the wedding rings. So Moore gets up and goes to get the rings, accidentally knocking Boyd down some stairs, as Boyd is crawling up the stairs to try to get revenge on the happy couple. Boyd falls down the steps and finally dies. After the ceremony, Laura, not wanting to be implicated for the role in Boyd's death, demands that Kyle buries Boyd's body out in the desert, and to ensure that And to ensure that there's no more loose ends, wants him to kill his buddy Moore along with Adam's dog, just because she hates that son of a bitch. Though ultimately, Kyle cannot go through with it, and so as Moore, and the dog heads back home, his mind starts wandering, thinking about happier times, doesn't pay attention, and crashes into an oncoming car. At some point later, we see Laura cleaning the house, looking kind of miserable. As we go outside, we see that we see Kyle has lost both of his legs below the knees. Charles is apparently brain damaged and confined to a motorized wheelchair, and the dog is missing one of its legs. Laura has to take care of these, plus the two little brats that Lois and Michael left him. The movie ends with Flora running down the street, screaming, crying as she falls and suffers a nervous breakdown, just flailing in the middle of the street. And that's the end of this happy little movie. Okay, maybe not happy little movie, but it was a damn good movie. I'm going to give away my overall opinion right now. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I definitely recommend it. Go out and watch it. Now that I've already gotten that out of the way, and we've blown the spoilers about how I feel about the movie, let's go and get some more thoughts on it. Before we go any further, as for full disclosure, let me say in advance that I am a big Christian Slater fan. I'm not gay. Never planned on being gay. Never thought about being gay. But if I was to go gay, Christian Slater may be the guy to go gay for. My wife says I have a man crush on him, so just to lay that out there in front so we know where we're at. Now on to my thoughts about the movie itself. We start out with pre-Marvel and about 100 pounds Jon Favreau. Again, I'm a fat ass myself, so I'm not one to speak, but Jon is doing pretty well for himself because he's put on a little weight since this movie. Again, nothing wrong, just pointing out that this appears to be a younger, skinnier Jon Favreau and Cameron Diaz. Cameron Diaz at one time was a hot mamma jamba. This is, I think, is the point where her mouth starts getting bigger than her head. She's still an attractive girl, lady, woman, whatever you want to call them, but she's got one of those flip-top heads that they used to have like on the Crest commercials. Her mouth is just bigger than it should be, which kind of detracts a little bit. But that's another story entirely. As far as the characters in the movie, this Laura chick that she plays, she's referenced as a bridezilla, and you see a lot of that kind of crap on these, True TV and or that MTV shows, Bridezilla and all these women going insane for the movies. So it's a realistic portrayal that sometimes women go a little nutso, getting ready for the wedding, but she treats Kyle like crap. She tells him that he needs to get new friends, he needs to dump all his friends, and flashing to the end of the movie, maybe he should have gotten new friends. Maybe that would have prevented this whole tragedy, but that's another story entirely. She's dissing his friends, telling that she doesn't like them, they're creepy, they're weird, he can do better. And while yes, that could be a good thing, I don't know, just the way she does it here, she comes off really bitchy. Hence, me kept referring to her as bitchy. And again, I'm not saying this is unrealistic because there's plenty of guys that pets up with women like this because they love them or desperate or whatever. I believe that Kyle Jon Favreau's character actually loves Loris, so that's why he pets up with her bullshit. But it is what it is. And then we meet his friends. You got Charles Moore, which is he comes across as kind of a loner, kind of a little of a weirdo. Robert Boyd, played by Christian Slater, who is a very much a Christian Slater character. And he starts off the movie a little bit, I don't want to say wacko, but a little questionable. And then you got the brothers Adam and Michael Burkow. Daniel Stern, who I know from City Slickers, I believe it was, and the Home Alone movies. And Jeremy Piven, who I know, only thing I really know him from is the Entourage show I used to watch. I think all 5 of these actors did a wonderful job. They portrayed the characters very well, I thought. Again, they go to Vegas for the bachelor party. They start drinking, doing drugs. They get the prostitute or stripper, whatever she is, there to strip for them. And she tells them, if you want anything extra, you're going to have to pay for it. I've never gotten a private stripper like that, so I don't know how true that is. It shows up in all the movies, so I'm assuming it's somewhat true. And then things start to go downhill when Michael decides to pay her extra and get a little something extra out of the deal, you know what I'm saying? And when he starts banging her in the bathroom, note to anyone listening out there that plans on picking up a hooker and banging the shit out of her in the bathroom, don't. Go to the bedroom. That's what it's there for. Because, you got a tile floor that could be wet from the water. You've got towel hooks on the wall. Some of them apparently head height. They could end up very, very bad. Such as it did for this, what's her name in this movie? Tina. Who was played by Kobe Tai, who I'm not familiar with. Apparently she was a porn star. Looking at the Wikipedia. She was a pornographic actress, an adult model. She's Taiwanese, born American. She started doing her porn stuff at the age of 24, was in about 70 films between 1996 and 2003. She was born to a porn actor, now divorced, but that's enough about her. Let's go on with this movie. So anyways, don't go in the bathroom and bang a hooker because you may bash her head onto a coat rook, a rack, what is that called? A towel hook, killing her, which is not a good thing. The second mistake they made was when one of them, I forget who it was, I want to say Michael, but it could have been Adam. In fact, maybe it was Adam. One of them goes to shut the bathroom door and they don't shut it all the way and it comes open a little bit, and that's what allows the security guard to see the dead body. Otherwise, the guard would have left and they wouldn't have had to kill him. Killing the guard. No, it's not the normal thing to do, but again, from this point here, definitely you can tell that Boyd, he's not quite playing the full deck. You can tell that, and again, there's in the movie, when they first find the hooker, dead, he's like, okay, we just got to get rid of the body, get her from here to there, and I think it was Jon Favreau's character, Kyle's like, hey, have you done this before? And he just kind of looks and he kind of ignores it and he's like, thing is, we've got a 106-pound problem here in the bathroom. We got to get 106 pounds from point A to point B. And he goes on saying how usually the quickest point is a straight line from A to B, and they're trying to figure out how to get her out of there. And he's doing it very methodologically. Probably not saying that word right, but he's thinking about it and he's doing it very logically. And again, it leads you to believe that this may not be the first hooker he's gotten rid of. Because while everyone else is freaking out, trying to figure out if they should call the cops or what to do, kind of either panicking or borderline panicking, Boyd's just like, okay, no, it's just another dead body. I call this Friday night. Fuck it, let's get rid of her. And he comes to that decision a little too quickly for not having ever done this before. So I'm going to go with the thought that there may be some desert spots around wherever they're from, I think LA, with some dead bodies buried out there somewhere. Or maybe the desert's in Vegas. Maybe there's some more dead bodies out there. But that's another story entirely. Again, in my opinion, they should have called the police to begin with. They may have got a little trouble for the drugs and alcohol and all that. But again, as far as the death of the hooker, it was an accident. I'm sure he wouldn't have got too long of a sentence. It may have caused the delay in the wedding, because I'm sure Kyle would have got in trouble for the drugs and alcohol too, but at least he wouldn't be, crippled by the end of the movie. But that's another story entirely. That's a different movie, I guess. But yeah, so security guard sees the dead hooker corpse, as I called her, and he, like any normal sane person, stabs the security guard a couple of times, throws him in the room, shuts the door, and lets him bleed to death in the bathroom. Again, another sign, besides being calm in the face that, they've got a dead hooker, his first instinct is to shank the security guy. And again, I think Christian Slater was good in this role. He usually comes across as a little psychotic to me. Actually, he always comes across to me, referring to Christian Slater, as a young Jack Nicholson. They both got that same crazy look in their eye, that same crazy smile on their face, the same receding hairline. I've got to wonder if they're related somewhere down the line. And if not, there should be a movie where he plays a young version of Jack Nicholson, because I think it'd be perfect. So anyway, so they go to the store, which was a really nice scene. They're walking through, picking up different tools and various items they're going to need. They dismember the bodies, and they take them out and bury them in the desert. While they're out there, Adam, I believe it was, again, he's been nervous about this whole thing. He's been wanting to call the police. When they're burying the bodies, him and his brother are Jewish, so they're very much of the opinion that, he tells them, their body needs to be together so their spirit can ascend. He makes a big deal, so they end up having to, play a jigsaw puzzle in the desert in the middle of the night with two corpses and put the bodies back together again, if you will. They're not putting them back together, but at least putting all the parts to the right pieces so the bodies are more or less whole so they can go on. Again, I guess that's a religious belief. I mean, at this point in my life, I haven't really talked much about religion on here, but I will at some point. I'm not a big fan of religion anymore. I grew up Pentecostal, so we didn't have this belief. I think, sounds like a Jewish thing. I think it's kind of silly, but again, I think religion in general is kind of silly at this point in my life. But that's for a different podcast I'll do later on. And Adam, like I say, he slowly starts going a little more crazier. He starts getting more and more upset by the fact that they've killed two bodies and buried them in the desert. They find out that the guard had a family, had a couple of kids. This pushes them even further. And we see the strain on him when they stop at a gas station. He's getting gas, and this one guy parks in front of him getting gas, and he keeps looking at Adam's van. And Adam's getting very paranoid. Cop pulls up and parks and kind of looks over at him. He's paranoid that the cop's watching him. And the wife wants him to go inside and get some whizzers. And he's like, I just want to get the fuck out of here. He's getting very paranoid. And his wife, again played by Jean Triplehorn, says, go get some fucking whizzers. Because the kids are yelling and screaming. And it's part of the problem with the kids. That they're not, in my opinion, again, I don't want to be one to tell people how to do their parenting, but I don't think there's enough parenting going on here. If there was enough parenting, the kids wouldn't be quite so much a shithead. But that has no real effect over the overall movie. Meanwhile, we see Boyd starting to get, he's anything that things are starting to set him off a little more. He's a little, as Wikipedia said, he's starting to display sociopathic behavior with a fascination with violence and death. I kind of would like to see Very Bad Things 2 or .1 or whatever, the sequel to, or the prequel to this movie, because I'm pretty sure that Wikipedia says he started to display them. I think maybe he's had this before and he's just been suppressing it because, again, some of the things he comes up with comes a little too quick. But at the wedding rehearsal dinner, the brothers start arguing about everything. Adam's cracking. They start yelling at each other. Michael's getting pissed off, yelling, you love your minivan, you love your family, fuck your minivan. He gets in his car and tries to ram his brother's minivan, and for some stupid reason, again, it's the heat of the moment, and Adam's starting to lose it already. He's starting to get a little off kilter anyways because of the whole murders. He steps in front of his brother's car, I guess thinking his brother would stop before he hit him. But Michael didn't have time to stop and just crushes Adam in the minivan. It was a great scene. I just love the way that he just smack and just crashes into him. It was fantastic. And then they're at the hospital. And see, the way he crushed him, I thought he died, but apparently not. He lived long enough to go to the hospital. And the cops are, questioning him, trying, I heard you guys were fighting beforehand. He's like, oh, we're just talking, we're just hanging out, it was an accident. But, he's getting really upset because, again, he just, whether he meant to or not, he just killed his own brother. So, I mean, he's very agitated, very, plus the whole, dead hooker and security guard thing, which is really pressing him. Before he dies, the doctors tell Lois that, her husband wants to talk to him, and, all the friends are like, oh, shit, what's he want to say? And he whispers, and we're still not quite sure what he told Lois. You might think, I don't know, I don't know if he admitted to that, to the whole Vegas thing, or if he just hinted at it, because Lois never says that she told him exactly what happened. She just said that, he changed since then, and she wants to know what happened in Vegas. So, I don't... They lead you to believe that maybe he told her what happened, but I don't think so, because she wants the guys to tell him. It could have just been that she wanted to hear it from them, but I don't know. I'm not quite sure. If you've seen this movie, what do you think? Did Adam tell his wife what happened, or do you think he told her something else? I don't know. You tell me. But anyways, so like I say, she eventually calls the guys together, and she's demanding what happened. They're freaking out, and I like that Kyle, because no one wants to admit that, they killed a hooker, and, that Michael killed a hooker, and Boyd killed a security guard, and they buried him out in the desert. So Kyle tells her that, as I said, that Adam slept with a prostitute, and it wasn't the first time. And she didn't believe him. And again, I don't think it's the fact that she didn't believe him, like Boyd thought she didn't believe him. I think it was more of a matter of she didn't want to believe him. She's like, no, that you're lying, that couldn't have happened. But yeah, I think it was just a matter of she was in denial. Even though we knew it didn't happen that way, I think they were just, she was in denial about what happened. And then we have Boyd. Like I said, I think to begin with, he was a little bit shithouse crazy. He thinks that she doesn't believe him, and she thinks something else went on. I'm not quite sure what Adam told her before he died, but again, the way she was acting, I personally don't think that he admitted to them killing the hooker and the security guard and burying him in Vegas desert, but I'm not quite sure. But anyways, it doesn't matter what I think. Boyd thinks she knows. And as I said, he talked his friends into leaving, taking the kids and the stupid-ass dog with him. And he kills her. He tries to do it peacefully, puts a pillow over her head. She fights back. She fights back like a mamba jamba. And she's proof that women aren't weaklings. Women aren't pushovers. She gives him pretty good until he finally gets the upper hand and just beats the snot out of her and kills her. And again, I keep saying this, and I think it's true. I believe Boyd's done this kind of stuff before. Again, I'm sure if you dig his backyard, you may find some bodies. Because he talks his friends into coming back. He says that they need to bring Michael back over. Because, he tells him that she wants to spend some time with her brother-in-law and mourn the loss of Adam. So the guys bring him over, and Boyd takes Michael into the house by himself. And then a few minutes later, he comes out and he says, okay, it's done. Now here's the story. And again, he's already got the story laid out about how, there was a love triangle going on between the three, in case they're asked about it. Again, I'm thinking Boyd's a bit of a psychopath. Even before this all started, he comes to this too naturally. And again, that's why I think Christian Slater's a perfect person for that role, because, he does come across as a bit of a psycho. If you're listening, I don't think you are, but if you're listening, Christian Slater, I don't mean nothing bad by that, brother. Anyways, where was I? So he kills Michael, makes it look like they killed each other. Michael and Lois killed each other. Then we have the lawyer scene with Kyle and Laura, and they find out that they've inherited he had an insurance policy of $500,000, and they're the beneficiaries of it. But then they get the bad news that he missed the last payment. So, fuck you, no insurance policy. All done. They get like $1,500 or some measly sum. Plus, they get the 2 little shithead kids and the stupid-ass dog. And at first, they get really excited that, hey, we got all this money, and then, oh, crap. Oh, we've only got just a little bit of money from them. Plus, we got to take care of the kids, plus their dog. And this is getting to be a bit too much for Kyle, so when he breaks down, again, I can understand how, all this could be weighing on him due to going to, Laura. Again, I don't want to fault her because, again, she's perfectly right to be upset and pissed off at him. But she, starts throwing his face. Well, if you hadn't gone to that fucking bachelor party in fucking Vegas, this none of fucking happened, and da-da-da-da-da, and da-da-da-da. Starts nagging and ragging and pissing and moaning at him. And again, I don't want to say she's in the wrong because she does have some valid points. But the man, again, I think that's part of why he's with her, because he's not a strong man emotionally, and just he's not an A-type personality, where she is very much a double A personality. She's very forceful and very, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want, this is what you're going to do, fuck you, do it. So she tells him, again, I know women get really crazy when it comes to marriage. A lot of them, like she said, she's been planning it since a little girl, her marriage, and she wants her wedding day to go perfect. And again, as weak as Kyle is, I guess there needs to be someone in that relationship that can put their foot down, put their big boy pants on, as she says, and take care of matters. So she tells him, you know what? She tells I've dreamed about this in my childhood, and whatever crimes you and your fucking friends have done, I'm not going to let you fuck up my perfect day. So, again, I understand where she's coming from. She's not wrong. But yeah, she just carries on that whole bitch attitude she has. Kyle's crying, breaking down, just ready to have a nervous breakdown himself. And she's telling him, man up, put your big boy pants on, and fix this shit. And then we got to the big wedding day. Boyd bursts in and tells I know you got, $500,000. I want my share. And Kyle's like, what are you talking about? And Boyd's like, oh, don't play stupid with me. So again, he's gone even more over the bend. He thinks Kyle is lying to him when Kyle tries to explain that there was no money, there is no insurance policy. And Boyd he freaks out and says, you're lying to me, give me the money now. And he starts beating on him. Over the money, he starts beating up one of his best friends. And again, I don't know how realistic that is, but again, when the guy's partially insane, and again, check dude's backyard. That's all I got to say. And Laura comes in and just beans in the back of the head with a statue or something. I forget what it was now, but... And again, just another... Again, there's very few women in this movie. There's the hooker who becomes hooker corpse. And then there's Lois who fought back, and then there's Laura who, while again, as I keep saying, she's a bit of a psycho hosebeast bitch, she is a very strong woman. So the women in this movie, no one in this movie looks good, but the women are strong and powerful women. I think that's one thing they do right for women in this movie. Again, this isn't a movie to be looking up to or a movie to be, using it to install the virtues of women, but... You gotta look for the good in things, and that's the good in this movie, is that, they do show the women, while, again, one's a hooker, one's a bitch, and then you've got the other one, Lois. They're all very powerful women in their own right. So, that, while the movie is kind of a fucked up movie, that is a good thing. But instead of making sure they're dead, they assume he's out. Whether they assume he's dead or just unconscious, I'm not sure what their thought process was, but she told him, she gets ready to go back to the wedding that's getting ready to start. She tells you take his body, you pet him to the crapper, and you get your ass downstairs so we can get married. Again, very forceful, very powerful, telling him, what's going on. And I believe this is where the movie starts, with Charles and Kyle sitting there right before the wedding starts. So the wedding begins. And I like that scene where, they're ready to do the whole ring ceremony thing, and Charles is like, I don't have him. And they realize the light goes off, and they're like, oh shit, Boyd has him. And meanwhile, we don't see that Boyd's, not quite dead. He gets up and starts crawling, and we can tell he's going out to get Laura and Kyle and probably try to kill him because he thinks they killed him, or they think they killed him. I don't know. But anywho, so as he crawls upstairs, it's kind of a funny scene. Again, I guess it's hard to say it's funny because it is a dark comedy. He's crawling up the stairs, getting them, and as Charles opens the door to go downstairs, the door hits Boyd, sends him flying back down the stairs, and he just thumps against the wall dead. The wedding goes on the rest of the way without a hitch, I guess. And again, this goes after the wedding. We get a bit more further that not only is Laura a bridezilla and a bit of a control freak, but she is a bit of a psycho bitch herself. She tells him, you need to take Boyd's body, bury him out in the desert with the hooker and the security guard, and while you're at it, clean up the loose ends. I want you to kill your buddy Charles and that stupid-ass dog. So again, she's gone from more than just being a bridezilla. She's gone to, no, I want you to kill your friend, your last remaining friend, and the dog. And I know a lot of people. I got a friend that's very much a dog person. She would freak out if she would have seen this. But, I should know. I'm not listening, but I should know. Anyways. But yeah, she just proves that she's a psycho herself, wanting her husband to kill his only best friend remaining and bury him out in the desert just to clear up any loose ends. Again, we're not going for realistic, but seeing how she apparently is a psycho, I can go with it. And so as Charles is digging the hole, Kyle's sitting there looking down at him, holding a shovel, and he gets ready to swing on his head. And he just looks at his friend, and his buddy's like, I want to, all this that we've gone through, I want to be a big brother. I want to help. I want to give back to the world. I want to, he's turn his life over. He wants to become a good person, and he wants to take a mold on life, if you will, and help out and give back to people. I think between that and realizing that that Charles is Kyle's last friend, Kyle's like, I can't fucking do this. But the last thing we see there, he's got the shovel up overhead, like he's about ready to do it. But he's looking at Charles like, can I do it? Can I do it? And then we cut to the car and we see that, Charles and Kyle and the dog are all fine, headed back home. And at this point, you think the movie's over for the most part. I mean, they got all the dead bodies buried that needs to be buried. He's not going to kill his friend. They're going home. And they fucking hit you in the nuts when he runs smack dab into another car coming the other way. And he goes flying through the windshield, and we see his legs sticking out the windshield of the other car where he's just lying there. Again, I thought it was kind of a funny scene. And then we have the last scene here where we see a beat down, wore out Laura, no longer a psycho bitch. Now she's just beat down and defeated, cleaning the table, and we look out and we see that everyone survived relatively, maybe not one piece. Again, I thought this was some great graphics, CGI, however they did it. Kyle had his legs amputated or cut off or something. He was missing his legs. Charles was in a wheelchair, blowing. I thought it was a tube to blow to get him around, but Wikipedia says it's a feeding tube. Or maybe it wasn't Wikipedia. Somewhere I read said it was a feeding tube. Whatever, Charles is he's just sitting there drooling on himself and spinning around in circles. Kyle's trying to take care of the kids, and the kids are, in scout uniforms, and they're like, fuck this shit, we're not doing this, fuck you. And Kyle's trying to, come on guys, let's do this, we're a family, let's do this. And he falls out of his chair, and Laura just walks out. She's got a cleaning brush in one hand and a sponge or something in the other because she was cleaning. And she walks out, and as we pull out, we see her walking down the street just slowly losing her mind. And honestly, I've fucking been there. I haven't been there. I haven't had a husband in a wheelchair that's a amputee and his friend that's brain dead in a motorized wheelchair, or two little shithead kids. Oh, and then let's not forget the three-legged dog now. But I've been to that point where just so much shit is being piled on you, so much shit seems to have gone wrong. You just want to lose it and just take a break from reality. And at the end of this movie, she takes that break. She falls down the middle of the street, crying, screaming, just laying there in the street, waving the brush, waving her legs and feet in the air, just having a mental breakdown. Again, I haven't had that mental breakdown yet, but I have been close a couple of times, it seems. I thought I was going to be there. And you never know. I've got 4 kids now. I got my baby, who's 7 months old. I mean, you know, any of them could push me to that point. But but I thought that's a good place to end the movie right there. The way they ended, them pulling out and Laura just crying and screaming and just going batshit crazy. I mean, that's all I really got to mean. I thought the director did a really good job. I liked all the actors in this movie. I thought they all did a really good job. Again, as I said before, I definitely recommend Very Bad Things. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. Make sure you take your sense of humor. Otherwise, you may not like it. But you know what? If not, go fuck yourself. I thought it was a damn good movie. But anyways, that's At the Movies of Head. Head Speaks will be back after these important messages.
Star Trek, comic books, mythology, video games, toys, Star Wars. Just about any geeky topic you can think of could be covered on the Hammer Podcasts, presented by 2 True Freaks. Come join me, Gene Hendricks, for whatever my disjointed mental processes can come up with, and be careful, or you might just learn something before we're done. The Hammer Podcast is available monthly, both on its own iTunes feed and at twotruefreaks.com.
Aquaman and Firestorm fighting crime together. Soak 'em down or burn 'em up. No one does it better. Whenever you find trouble, they'll always be there to catch them in a bubble or even torch their hair. They stand for truth and justice in sea, on land, and air. Firestorm and Aquaman, they make a super pair.
The Fire and Water Podcast, celebrating Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas, and Firestorm, the Nuclear Man.
Available weekly on Aquaman Shrine, Firestorm Fan, and on iTunes and Stitcher.
I'm one of your hosts, the Irredeemable Shag, here to talk about Firestorm. Along with me is my co-host Rob Kelly, here to talk about some guy that talks to fish.
Really? You're going to pull this crap during the promo? Bad enough I have to put up with your shenanigans every week, but...
And now back to Head Speaks.
Fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero.
And the masters of the universe.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power. Who you gonna call?
Thundercats!
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons.
Whatever the challenge, they are ready. The Centurions
are the visionaries.
I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
And now Geekin' with Head.
Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
And welcome back. And here we are with Geekin' with Head. Today I have an extra special guest. Once again, returning to Headland, we have the irreconcilable, the indispensable, the irredeemable Shag. Hey, sup, Shag?
Hey, man, how's it going? Irresponsible. I don't have any constipation problems, thank you very much. I am perfectly regular. I don't know what you're talking about.
I just started making up words as I went along, and hope the chairs were comfortable in the green room this time.
Not bad, not bad. The shrimp, I think the shrimp's gone off a bit, but other than that, you had green M&Ms, so I'm good.
Of course. Well, I've asked Mr. Shag to join us today because I'm going to talk about something that I hear a lot of crap talked about. A lot of people diss comics from the late 80s, early 90s, into the 90s.
They're fools!
My point exactly. In fact, I may be biased because I started, as I've said, in 87 is when I actually started collecting comics.
One of the best years of one of the best single years of DC Comics, by the way.
Yes. So I figure I'm going to look from like 85 to about 95. That seems to be the golden age decade, to me at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a list of comics that I think is some of the best from the era. And Shag, I've got Shag here because if you listen to any Shag shows, you know that he's good at telling people where they're wrong. So that's why I've got
Well, you're wrong about that already. So I'm exceptional at telling people where they're wrong. Not good.
See? So I've got Shag here to correct me when I go wrong, and we'll see what happens. So,
unfortunately, you've also picked my favorite era of comics, so I mean, I'm probably not going to tell you you're wrong too often. For me personally, my sweet spot's about 1982 to about 1995. Just about anything in there I love, and right now I'm kind of going through a phase where I've kind of had enough of new comics, and I'm basically diving back into these eras and looking for stuff either I haven't read in 20 years that I've forgotten, or stuff I never read back then. Because there's a ton of comics back in that era I never read, so I'm like, I might as well read them now.
Might as well. See, I was a bit of a whore at the time. When I got into comics, I bought almost every single DC and almost every single Marvel comic.
Apparently you were independently wealthy as well.
I know I was independently broke. I used to tell my comic shop owner I'd go in. Most people have like a bag. He'd have a box for me. I'm just going to sign my check over to you guys. To hell with it. I mean...
I used to manage a comic shop during this era. I managed a shop from 1991 to 1996. So you are our favorite kind of customer.
Yes. Yeah. But okay, let's go and get started. So the first comic I'm going to mention is it's going to be the top of my list. The first couple is the top of the list, and then the rest are just thrown in as I thought about them. But G.I. Joe is the top of my list. As I've talked about here and over on the G.I. Joe and Real American Headcast, G.I. Joe has a special place in my heart because it's the comic that's got me into comic books. Were you a fan of the G.I. Joe comic from Marvel?
It's crap.
See? And
no, I'm totally kidding. Because I know I would have alienated just about everyone our age.
Pretty much.
I loved the cartoon. For some reason, I guess I was just so into Star Wars still at that point, and that I just didn't focus on G.I. Joe that much. So, while I watched the cartoon, I never read the comics. All my friends did. It just kind of passed me by. So, while I have no animosity, certainly, to G.I. Joe, I don't have a deep love for it either. I did pick up was it Dreamwave who had the license first, and then IDW? I can't remember. Whoever.
Something like that.
Devils Do, I think. Anyway, I was reading that series for quite a while and was enjoying it. But it's just something that I missed somehow.
But G.I. Joe started in 1982. As I've talked about in my other podcasts, I didn't start it until 87. When most people are getting out of comics, they're late teens, I'm getting into them. But again, before that I was into Star Wars. And then for a few years I watched the cartoon, but I wasn't into comics per se until I picked up it was issue 59 with Cobra Commander and his new battle armor.
Okay.
And his son Billy laying on the bed behind him. That was the first one I picked up. And
that just sounds dirty. But
I'm telling you. And from there I went back and picked up almost all the back issues and continued buying it from that point forward. The next one on the list, I think we'll probably skip the next one. It's kind of a crap comic. Something called Firestorm. You all right there?
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
And technically it started in the late 70s, but it hit its popularity in the 80s, and that's when I found it. And do you know anything about Firestorm there, Shag? Have you heard of that comic?
I've heard of it. I don't know that I've read much of it. I think it started December 6, 1977. Maybe. It's possible. Hey, I think that's an important distinction because it's cover dated 78, but it actually came out December 77, so it came out the same year as Star Wars. I think it's important.
Oh, I agree.
Anyway, yeah, obviously, I run a Firestorm fan website. Just a bit podcast about Firestorm, etc. Sadly, of all the things to be the go-to guy in the world, I'm the go-to guy on Firestorm. I was explaining to my wife the other day, if you have tiers of characters, like Superman and Batman and Spider-Man are like A tier, right? And Flash and Green Lantern are like B tier. Firestorm's like G tier. So,
see, I have to disagree with you on that. Personally, I rank him up as a B team. That's my own prejudice.
I agree with that. I'm saying step back from that. And
right.
It's the reality of who has heard of him. Now, the Flash TV show raised the profile quite a bit. But as far as regular people on the street hearing of this character, no way.
Yeah, no, I agree, sadly.
But 82 is when the Fury of Firestorm series started. The one that went 100 issues with Jerry Conway and Pat Broderick. Oh, such a good comic.
That was yes, I agree. That was a great run. Again, I started late in the run on that one also because I didn't start till 87.
Okay, blank slate.
Yeah, I picked up the first one. I picked up was the like we talked about this previously. Where he was looking for Professor Stein and he finally found him in the hospital or wherever it was.
You're gonna make me cry. Stop.
And then from there,
getting awful clumped.
And like I said, I knew Firestorm from the Super Friends cartoon and from the some occasional Just League comic book. But yeah, that was my first Firestorm comics I picked up. And then again, I backtracked the entire run, bought the rest of the series as it came out. And just to let you know, wax your cars, you guys say here a little bit. I love your guys' Fire and Water podcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
I like Aquaman, but Firestorm, again, he's one of my two favorite heroes, as I've said before. In fact, as I put on my Facebook, my daughter knows of my love for Firestorm, and she's such my little girl that she created her own character called Fireburst, which is Firestorm's daughter.
I've been following the adventures of Fireburst. I'm very, very impressed with your daughter's creativity.
Every time I turn around, she's doing a new #1 for Fireburst, and
she's just like Marvel and DC, a new #1 every month.
Pretty much. She's getting ready to work in the big leagues.
She's got the marketing savvy down already. Look at her.
Yeah. But yeah, no, yeah, she's anything I like, she's really into. So yeah, she likes Firestorm, and again, yeah, she creates her own character. She wants. In fact, we asked her, what do you want to be for Halloween? Because my wife found a Firestorm costume online.
Oh wow.
And she's like, I want to be Fireburst. You need to be an actual person, not no, I want to be Fireburst.
Encourage the creativity. That's fantastic, man.
Very much so. Yeah, she is very creative and very imaginative. So.
Have you guys watched like the old Superpowers cartoon together?
No, I haven't downloaded any of those yet or found them yet.
So
I need to.
If she can handle older cartoons, it depends on your kids. Some kids are like, this stuff's crap, But
well, she really loves the Dozer's Batman, the '66 Batman.
Oh,
Adam
okay,
West.
Gotcha. Yeah,
yeah, Bill Dozer. Yeah,
okay.
She really loves that Batman TV show.
Okay, well then she'd be cool with this probably.
So, yeah, I'm sure she would.
Well, that season with Firestorm's a good primer to help the kid understand. Like that's how I got my daughter to understand Firestorm. Like I would tell her about it, she'd be like, well, okay, Dad, if you say so. But then once I showed her the cartoons, man, she was doomed. She got it.
Yeah, that's how I need to get to find those and play those for her because I'm sure, yeah, she would. Cause, yeah, she likes the She-Ra cartoon from that time frame, and
good stuff.
She likes all that old stuff. So
cool.
Definitely my daughter. Well, moving on from Firestorm, unfortunately, because I like talking about Firestorm. But then there's the Secret Origins series from DC Comics.
Yep.
I enjoyed even the bad issues. I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Even when they talk about Johnny Thunder and.
The spirit of that comic's a lot of fun. Just you get to dive into a different character every month. And again, it's in that era that we love so much in the '80s. So it's a lot of fun, that comic.
Yeah, and in fact, the next episode of Ryan Daly's Secret Origins podcast, I'm going to be on talking about the Suicide Squad origin.
Oh, okay.
So
I look forward to hearing your part. I don't care for that Ryan Daly kid much, but
that's what I've heard. But
man, that guy's just a jackhole. But anyway,
I can't say too much because he does the G.I. Joe headcast with me, so I kind of watch what I say.
You should be open and honest with your feelings. It's not healthy to keep them inside.
Though, when I'm getting ready to release the actual first episode of the podcast, and you really need to listen to that because you are brought up, and I do make a dig at Ryan. So.
Oh, good. I'm on board already.
I figured you would be. But anyone that's out there listening to us, check out especially the episode 4 of Secret Origins. That's our good buddy Shag here was on talking about, well, Firestorm, of course.
Guy whose head's on fire, that's right.
So definitely check out that. Then we move on to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I talked about briefly in my last headcast, my last Head Speaks. I talked briefly about the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Again, I picked this one up at a later point because by the time I got into comics, it was all done and over with. But I picked it up, and I loved this series. I thought it was fantastic.
Dude, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is your opinion on that, Shag?
Dude, this comic is unbelievable to me. I love this. I worship at the feet of this comic. I'm so biased towards it that I can't even talk about it objectively enough. I can't even be fair about it. It was my gateway drug to DC Comics. I had already been reading Firestorm because I started picking up Firestorm literally 15 minutes after the Super Friends episode aired with Firestorm. I watched that episode of Firestorm. I was like, rode up to the convenience store, and I remembered seeing some Firestorm comics up there and bought a Firestorm comic that day. That's how I became a Firestorm collector. But either way, so I was buying that comic. Other than that, I wasn't getting really any DC Comics. Maybe a few Justice Leagues. Maybe. But anyway, but when Crisis came out, I knew it was a big hoopla, big deal, whatever, and I read in a role-playing game book that Barry Allen died in the Crisis. Sorry, spoilers. And I was like, what? Because I had read an issue of Flash recently, and I was really into Barry Allen. I'm like, what? He died? What?
Well, that's right. So, he comes back, and I know you really enjoyed that. So.
Oh man, I'm trying to keep my dinner down. Let's not go there. But so I went up to the store. We were going on this long car trip, so I picked up issues. I want to say it's 6 and 8. And every time I tell this story, I think it changes, but I'm still pretty sure it's 6 and 8. Anyway, and I read those, and it was just like, whoa, who are all these characters? Oh my gosh! I started making little lists. Like, okay, here's the Earth 1 characters. Here's the Earth 2 characters. Trying to keep track of it all. And, they say that these big crossovers are either the worst or the best things to jump in on, and for me it was the best. So I've been hooked to DC ever since.
Well, it's definitely a good thing to get started on, because, Crisis, that was... Again, like I said, I read a few... In fact, before I started becoming a collector, if you will, a friend of mine gave me a big-ass box of comics, mostly pre-Crisis. Superman, Action, Batman, a little this, a little that, and I read through all of those, and then when I got into actual reading the comics, and I picked up the Crisis, I'm like, oh, okay, I see where this fits in, and very interesting. If you haven't read that, that's a great series. One of these days, I want to get the absolute version of it.
Me too.
I've heard people talk about it, like Michael Bailey and
Scott Gardner.
Yeah, Scott Gardner.
Covering that on Tales of the JSA right now.
Yep, I pimped them my last episode also, because that's... Like, I need another podcast to listen to. I decided to listen to that one also, because it's talking about the Crisis, so...
I got to brag for just a second. I work from home, so the office I'm in right now is where I work every day. And over my desk is a 6-foot-long poster. Oh. It's the Crisis on Infinite Earths poster from when they released the first collected hardcover. It was penciled by George Perez, painted over the pencils by Alex Ross, and it's got over 500 characters on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it's at now, because at one time I was an administrator at an internet company.
Okay.
And in my office, I had that poster up on my wall, and
gotcha.
Everyone would walk by, they'd stop and they'd look at it, and who's that? What's that? What's happening? Oh, yep. Boy, you stopping and talking. That's a.
And I just all day long while I'm working, I find myself looking up and I'm like, oh look, there's Dolphin, or like, oh hey, there's Batlash, or whatever, and it's just like, wow.
Every time you look, you can see someone new on it, because
yep,
that was magnificent. And George Perez.
And Alex Ross. And in fact, it's the only time, to my knowledge, that Alex Ross has ever drawn or painted Firestorm.
That's because he's an idiot. Oh.
He's not an idiot.
No, I'm joking, sort of. I love him. I love his artwork. But I wish he would do more Firestorm.
Well, the deal there, right?
Yeah.
Is that as far as he's concerned, his JLA ended when Iris Allen died, because that's when the DC universe started getting dark. So everything that happened after Iris Allen's death, he's not a huge fan of.
And
so
I can see where he's coming from mostly, but
you know what? I kind of relate, because now, like with the New 52 and stuff like that, I'm sort of like, I'm apathetic to it. Like I just don't care anymore. And so anything that happens after, Flashpoint or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
It happened.
So
Okay.
I can understand. I'm a comic company's worst nightmare. I'm not a comic fan who's angry anymore. I'm a comic fan who doesn't care anymore. At least angry fans will still buy stuff.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I'm still buying lots of comics and reading lots of comics, but they're all older stuff.
Right. And
so, like Marvel Digital Unlimited, oh my gosh, I've gone nuts on that.
Yeah, I've heard you rant and rave about how great that is, and how you're going through that.
I counted the other day. I've read something like, just since April, since I got it,
Right.
I've read something like 130 comics.
Wow.
I don't think I read 130 comics all last year. But just with this, and I've got this crappy little tablet I got from Verizon for like $30. I mean, they're cheap, but like, I'm just, I suddenly found like, wow, I just read 30 issues of the Hulk. I don't even like the Hulk that much. Wow. Well, it's not true. I do like the Hulk, but it's like I'm not even like a Hulk diehard fan. But I'm like, wow, okay, that was fun. So,
right on.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. No, that's.
I tangent.
That's fine. That's why I've got you on here. I need someone to help tangent a little bit. So, the next one on my list is Wolverine. And again, I liked Wolverine back when I first, in the early mid '80s. I really liked Wolverine. At a certain point, it's not so much I stopped liking Wolverine. He just became too popular.
You think?
And
just
they made him
just a bit.
Yeah, it made him too popular, made him too powerful. They just got carried away with it. But that Wolverine miniseries and his early series, ones I really liked.
Here's where I'll tell you, you're wrong.
See, that's why I've got you here.
Those early issues of Wolverine sucked. Not the Frank Miller miniseries, which I'll be honest, I haven't read the Frank Miller miniseries, but I have the hardcover sitting on my shelf waiting to be read. But the monthly ongoing book, or maybe I'll put it a different way. I will see your Wolverine and raise you Uncanny X-Men from the 80s.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's what made Wolverine popular and where he got the Wolverine spinoff. But
yes.
I was diehard, deep into the Uncanny X-Men. Just went nuts for that comic. Loved it. Started reading it in '83 and read it all the way through like 95, 96 or something like that.
Okay.
And but the Wolverine series, I tried and I was like, this is not good. And obviously everyone is entitled to their own opinion. If you enjoyed the comic, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. You're wrong, but I'm happy for you. And,
I'm married. I'm used to being told I'm wrong, so that's okay.
But I would substitute on your list Wolverine for Uncanny X-Men.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely Uncanny X-Men, especially at this time frame. Yeah, no, I agree. That's definitely another great read. The New Teen Titans by the marvelous Marv Wolfman and George Titans Perez, as I tend to call him.
That's good. That's good.
I really liked, especially up when it got to the 100s, you could see Marv was getting kind of tired and burnt out on, I think. But the early issues of that, great title. I know that was one of DC's top sellers back in the, the mid 80s, early 80s.
Oh yeah. It started in 82, 83, something like that, yeah. And it was pretty much out of the gate a huge seller, to the point where in 84 they launched a second monthly title, which was what we all call the Baxter series. But yeah, around, somewhere in the issues between the 70s and the 100s of the Baxter series, which eventually was just called New Titans by that point.
Right.
Supposedly Marv Wolfman just had really, really, really bad writer's block, and to the point where he wasn't enjoying it. I made the mistake. I met him at a convention, and I made a mistake of asking him lots of questions about that era. Whoops! Don't do that. Just my recommendation for you, folks. It gets bloodier the more you ask. By the way. Anyway.
Thanks for the heads up on that.
Yeah. Oof. So yeah. But that's actually when I got into it. I missed the whole early era of Titans. I've got them now, and I've read many of them. I haven't read them all, but I've got many of them, and they're great. But I started with New Titans, which is the Baxter series, on issue 71, 72, whatever.
Okay, that's right before the Titans Hunt, or right as the
It's
Titans
actually
Hunt
the
starting?
first issue of Titans Hunt.
I was thinking like 72, but
maybe it's whatever number it was.
Yeah.
You know, it's Dick Grayson on the cover, and the party has fallen apart. You know, like there's a big celebration party, and it's all falling apart.
I enjoyed that.
Loved it.
I think it may have ran a little long.
Absolutely.
But overall, I enjoyed the Titans Hunt. I hear a lot of people say that's when Marv lost it and went off the tracks then. I like the Titans Hunt. I thought it was a good way of getting rid of some of the old characters that they don't want to deal with anymore, and it kind of, I don't know, I just really enjoyed that run.
Yeah, I did too, and it's clearly sold well because you get.
Oh yeah.
You know that it was Tom Grummett drawing, by the way, who's just he is a god in DC Comics art. Oh, he's so good. But you get Wolfman and Grummett doing it. Then it gets so popular, you get 2 spin-offs. You get Team Titans and the Deathstroke series.
Yes.
And at least my memory is the Deathstroke comic was pretty good. I could be wrong there, but that's how I remember it. And the Team Titans book was always like on the cusp of being good.
Yeah.
It's never quite there, but it's really close.
I've got the same memory. I enjoyed Deathstroke when it started, and yeah, Team Titans was okay. It wasn't the Teen Titans or New Titans. It wasn't that good, but it was a decent run.
But you're right. By issue 100, like the wedding of Dick and Starfire, the rails had gone off. Wolfman was not at his best. The art was. I didn't care for the art.
Yeah, no, that was about the time. Yeah, the art started going downhill, in my opinion.
And then they started the post-Zero Hour Titans, which conceptually looked good on paper, which was a new team with like Supergirl and Green Lantern and Arsenal and Impulse and all. I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be great! All these teen characters, I love them. And that book was awful. And what we didn't know was what we were really waiting for was Young Justice, which is what we got, which was much better.
Yeah, I agree. Next on my list is Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I missed this when it first came out, but I picked up the trade paperback, and I thought this was, again, I guess I don't need to say it because everyone knows Watchmen was a fantastic series. Everyone loved it for the most part. Did you enjoy Watchmen? Did you read Watchmen when it came out?
I got it as a gift in trade paperback form from a buddy. Probably in 90 or 91.
Oh, okay.
So what's that? A few years after it came out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect, and it like you mentioned, just blew me away. I was like, comics can be like this? Oh my gosh!
I'm telling you that and was it The Dark Knight Returns?
Yep, Dark Knight Returns.
What the heck? Wow.
I remember reading that. I mean, that was. I read it. A buddy of mine loaned me his copies. It was during the summer when I read it. I read them all in one sitting, so clearly they've been out for a while, I guess.
Yeah.
And just, it's like, whoa, And
yeah, again, those are ones. Again, they were out before I got into comics. I bought the trade paperbacks, and wow.
Yep.
In fact, it was a while before I actually got the Dark Knight trade paperback. That was, it was the mid '90s because me and a buddy of mine was doing. We used to sell. The McDonald's Happy Meal toys and collectible the cups and all that kind of crap.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to McDonald's, we go to toy shows and sell them. And I picked up the trade paperback at one of the toy shows. Someone had the trade paperback. I'm like, oh, I never did get that. Oh, let me get that. And I finally read it down. Like, oh wow, this is great. So
I feel bad for people who read it nowadays because it must lose so much of its punch now.
Yeah, I'm sure because it.
The story, it influenced comic book storytelling for the last 30 years. So at the time, it was revolutionary.
Yeah, definitely. Next on my list is Hawkeye. No, it's not. It wasn't a typo. I got Hawkeye on there.
Explain. Did he have his own series in the 80s?
He had a mini-series. I believe it was the mid or early 80s.
Huh.
He had a 4-issue mini-series. Mockingbird showed. In fact, I think that's when him and Mockingbird first hooked up.
I can't remember this.
Yeah, I picked that again. That was before I got into comics. I picked up the back issues of that. It was a 4-issue miniseries. I've got to go through my comics in my garage. I've still got that, I'm sure.
I seem to recall he was like.
And then he was.
Was he the lead feature in the Solo Avengers?
Yeah, I was going to say the Solo Avengers. It was Avengers anthology title, if you will, and yeah, he was the lead story in that one all the time, or the main character in the solo Avengers.
I missed that miniseries, but where I fell in love with the character was in the West Coast Avengers miniseries.
That was good too.
And I haven't reread that in years. I picked up the trade paperback, so that not too long ago too. So someday I'm going to read all this stuff, probably in my retirement when I'm senile and don't remember it anyway. But I loved those West Coast Avengers, the early ones. Oh, they're so good.
Those are great. Yeah, in fact, back at this time when I got into comics, a buddy of mine got him about the same time, and he bought like the West Coast Avengers, and I'd borrow his comics and read his. And we'd share titles here and there.
Yep. Now, I don't know if I'm breaking any taboos here talking about modern comics, but there are a few modern comics I have read in the last few years. Did you read the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series?
I tried.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the artwork in that.
Okay.
I understand that it's not that it's bad artwork, but as I've said before, I'm very much the traditionalist. I like the 4-color superheroes for the most part. The Matt Fraction, that artwork is fine in some titles, but as far as Hawkeye, I don't care for it myself.
Okay.
It kind of distracts me. So yeah, I've tried reading the original series he had, and then they just restarted it here not too long ago. I tried reading the first couple issues of that, and the writing is, from what I've seen, is great. But I'm very much, if the artwork I don't care for, it's hard for me to get into the story.
Okay.
So, but yeah, everyone I hear, and that's why I've tried a couple times, because everyone I think I've heard you talk about it also. How good it is.
I can't vouch for the new one because I haven't read the new one that just started.
Right.
But as far as the Matt Fraction one, folks, I'm sorry to tell you, Brother Head is dead wrong. The artwork is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's different. It's weird. Absolutely is non-traditional. You're absolutely right about that, though. But the comic is just pure joy. The idea is basically Hawkeye is a superhero when he's with the Avengers. When he's not with the Avengers, he's kind of a regular guy who gets beat up a lot, usually by the Russian mob. It's just, oh my gosh, it's funny. It's a little bit sexy. It's enjoyable. It's such a good comic.
And see, that's my other issue with it, is that I'm a big fan of superheroes and the costumes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like when the Avengers moved, they've pulled Hawkeye out of his costume for the most part.
Right.
And they've copied the same thing for the comic. I'm not a fan of this non-costume. It's still a costume, but it's less costume now than it used to be. And that kind of bugs me.
But they used his costume to the best degree ever in an issue. You remember in the 80s, all the Marvel comics had the corner boxes up on the left-hand side, right? And they had all the little heads.
Right.
And one of the West Coast Avengers one, they had a little Hawkeye head.
Right.
Well, there's one scene in this Matt Fraction series where Hawkeye is diving across the room, and he's either, I don't know, throwing something or pulling his bow out, and he's naked because he was just having sex with this girl. And he's jumping across the room, and he's buck naked. So they used the Hawkeye head from the corner box to cover his jump. And it's just hysterical. I'm just like, oh my god!
That does sound pretty good.
They don't make a big deal about it. It's just there, and if you know what it is, you're like, that's from the corner boxes in the 80s. And it's just, it's not really a comedy, folks. I mean, there's some issues that I freaking cried at the end of, but it's really good. Anyway, it's not about the 80s. I should move on. Sorry.
That's all right. This was, I think this was the early 90s, Hawkworld.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed this. My only problem with the series is that they didn't set it in the past. Because, again, it made a mess of the continuity. I'm a big continuity guy. But as far as the series by itself, I thought Hawkworld, the 3-issue miniseries, and then I think the ongoing was called Hawkworld.
Yep.
I thought it was fantastic. I loved Hawkworld.
I'm a huge fan of that miniseries. And you're right. I think it was Mark Waid that said it originally that, if they had just said the words 5 years ago, it would have fixed all the continuity problems. But, wow, that Hawkworld series just is another one of those where you sit down and read it and you're like, whoa, comics are cool. It's dark, it's very dystopian. The Kadar Hall is very different kind of character. His world is like this horrible place, and it's just wow. And like Shiera Thal, I think is how you say her name.
I believe so.
I fell in love with her in that comic. Now, I have a soft spot for redheads anyway, but she, like, of all the versions of Hawk Girl, Hawk Woman, that's my favorite from the Hawk World series. And the ongoing series was, I'm a little torn on it because, like, I love it, and I was completely into it. But and John Ostrander wrote it, and I pretty much. I mean, I know you've heard of him.
Who? I think he's written some I've read before. I think
something maybe. But two things I have a hard time when I think about that series. Was one, I remember reading it month to month, and the whole storyline with Biff just went on too long. Like, I was just like, kill him, just put a bullet in his head, just get it over with. So that I remember that going on too. And the other thing, they were so wrapped up with the continuity problems and trying to fix them. There would be whole storylines that were all just literally about to plug a hole in continuity. And it just got to be a bit much. And some of it was clever. I mean, I remember being like, "Ooh, that was cool the way they fixed that," but all in all, it's just like, okay, let's move on. Yeah. Let's just tell some cool stories with people getting their heads smashed in. But
anyway. So when it started out, was like I say, some of the later issues, because we're worrying about trying to fix continuity issues that they created by not doing the miniseries in the first place the right way. But that's another story entirely, I guess.
Well, everyone else got their year one. Batman got his year one. Superman got his Man of Steel. Wonder Woman got her relaunch. Atom got Power of Atom, and I guess that wasn't a retelling, but everyone got a retelling essentially. And
see,
Green Lantern got Emerald Dawn. So Hawkman got Hawk World, and it was damn good.
Oh yeah, and Wonder Woman was the other one that kind of messed up continuity because again they set that in present day instead of, whereas Man of Steel was set in the past. Batman was year one within the series, was like a soft reboot.
What's funny is, like, a lot of people nowadays, I hear a lot of people talking about how torqued up they get about how continuity slowly rolled out in post-crisis. And it didn't all happen at once.
Right.
Where, like, the New 52, it did. Everything happened. Other than Batman and Green Lantern.
Okay. I'm going to have to have a slight disagreement with that, but yeah.
That's fine. Could you imagine that staff meeting, Dan DiDio and Jeff Johns sitting down with the whole staff going, okay, we're relaunching everything. All the stories you've been writing for the last 30 years are meaningless. Everybody starts from zero. Nothing is sacred anymore. We're gonna redo everything. Oh, by the way, except for Jeff and Grant stuff, they're fine. By the way, okay, could you pass me the donuts? I mean, that had to be an awkward staff meeting. The other guys looking around at each other, going, "Grant and Jeff, seriously? Go screw yourself, man." All right. So anyway, so a lot of people are torqued up about Crisis on Infinite Earths and the post-continuity rollout and how it just was slow over a number of years. The weird thing is, at the time, I don't remember it bothering any of us. Like, maybe I just had my head in the sand, but it was like, oh, they're redoing Hawkman now. Okay. It wasn't like, why didn't they get it right the first time? Now, Hawkman's, I think I said Hawkeye just a second ago, but anyway, Hawkman's origin was admittedly screwed up pretty bad. But I didn't mind the constant changing. I was fine with it. I didn't mind that it was, we just kind of all chalked it off to, like, Crisis just took a while to catch in certain areas or something,
You see, that's because you weren't hanging out with me, apparently, because I was one of the ones that was like, wait, what about Hawk? Wait a minute. Wait, I don't understand. I'm confused now. Wait a minute. I was one of the ones that did complain about at the time when I read Hawk. I'm like, well, it's a good series, but Hawkman's been on it. Where does this fit in?
Someone should. What your wife should give you for Christmas? She should give you a 1,000-piece puzzle and just take one piece out. It would help your soul. It would help
probably
you. Probably
not.
It would. You'd lose sleep at night being like, that one piece. Oh my God.
Where's it at?
And you know what? But eventually you would come to you would come to a point in your life where you're okay with it, and you would figure out that some things are okay to let go of.
Either that, or I'd nut up and kill everybody in the house.
Wow.
One of the two. One of the two.
That's a lot of people to kill, too, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, that one of the two. I don't know which way I'd go on that, but...
Yikes. Sorry, Mrs. Head.
Yeah, let's move on from there before, please get called over again. Next one I got on my list, converging from talking about the Crisis once again, the DC events. For the most part, in the late 80s, early 90s, I enjoyed most of the events. I enjoyed Legends. Again, It spun out Suicide Squad. Invasion. I loved Invasion.
Yep.
Armageddon 2001, besides the screw-up...
It wasn't a screw-up. It was a change.
Which was a screw-up. I mean,
it's a bad decision. Yeah.
Yes. And for those that don't know, there was Armageddon 2001 was a guy called Matthew Ryder. Through the story, came back to present time from the future, became a hero called Wave Rider, trying to find out who became the big bad evil monarch in the future. He was able to touch people and see a possible future. He touched almost every hero he could find except for Captain Atom throughout the different annuals. And before the second issue was released, apparently, I guess my understanding, what I've heard, is that somehow it slipped out that Captain Atom was going to be Monarch, and so DC freaked out, panicked, and said, "Oh shit, we got to do something." Oh, we're canceling Hawk and Dove series. Hawk's the new Monarch.
Made no friggin' sense whatsoever.
And considering one of the last annuals, if I'm not mistaken, was Hawk and Dove, where they showed Hawk fighting Monarch.
It was a mess. In fact, I asked Dan Jurgens about it not too long ago.
Right.
We were doing a lightning round of questions, so he didn't have much time. Kind of planning it on purpose. But I said, in Armageddon 2001, who should Monarch really have been? And he gets all quiet, and he goes like, Captain Atom. Because Dan drew that. I can't remember if he wrote it or someone else wrote it, but it was DC wanted to keep the secret, so they changed their story, and to their detriment.
But regardless, I thought it was a good series. The annuals, there were some really good ones. There were some that was but overall, I enjoyed that series. And then
it was like a big what if. What ifs are always fun.
Oh, and I love the What If series, so
yep.
That was definitely an added attraction. So, and then there was 0 Hour. Again, in my opinion, if Crisis had been handled, again, not really Crisis, but the after effects of Crisis had been done properly, 0 Hour wouldn't have been needed. But as it was, I thought 0 Hour was a good series.
Yeah, it was fun. And even if it wasn't needed, they still would have found a reason for it. I mean, it's 10 years later. Let's celebrate with a big miniseries and make a lot of money. It was. I enjoyed 0 Hour. Looking back at it now, is it as good as I'm torn. It's another one where I'm kind of hard to be biased because I was at that point right then. I was reading darn near every single DC comic. So I was completely invested in the DC universe at that point.
Well, as I said earlier, I was buying just about every single DC, almost every single Marvel title at this time frame also. So
yep.
I was definitely...
It's funny, I don't see on your list anywhere here Millennium or DC Bloodlines. That's odd.
Oh, I forgot to put that on there. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. That should be right under War of the Gods. Which, in
War
fact,
of the Gods.
I see War of the Gods and I raise you Genesis.
Yeah, but we're out of the early 80s by now, aren't we?
No, Genesis was, that was probably the late 90s, mid 90s.
Genesis.
I don't know. I've tried to forget it.
Genesis is really bad. It's so bad I don't even remember it. Like I know.
Me too.
It had something to do with faith, but anyway. Bloodlines is exceptionally bad. Millennium's pretty bad.
I've got a soft spot for Millennium because that was wrapping up when I got into comics.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
So, as we talked about previously, I was the one person that picked up the New Gods. I keep messing up. That's how much I liked it. I can't get the name right.
No, the New Guardians?
New Guardians, thank you.
You were that guy.
I was that guy. I picked up that series.
I saw a copy in a dollar bin the other day, and all I thought was, that's overpriced.
Yeah. And again, I haven't read these since they came out, so I could be completely wrong. I usually am.
Yeah, you are in this case, buddy. Oof. Those are some bad comics from what I remember. I didn't read many of them, but it was not enjoyable. And then War of the Gods is just, I feel so bad for War of the Gods because it deserved to be good.
It was George Perez.
It was George Perez. It had a great premise, which was, the Roman gods versus the Greek gods. Wow, that's cool. And then bring in every other, religious thought. In Firestorm they did the African black gods. There's all this different stuff. It's like, wow, these are some cool ideas. And it's like, I use this analogy a lot, but it's like a cake baked wrong. All the ingredients are right. You put them all in the bowl, and you just screw it up somehow the way you put it together, and the cake tastes like crap.
Well, back when I was in school, I loved the Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
I love comic books. So I'm like, oh, this is George Perez. I love his artwork and his writing. This is going to be a great series. What the hell?
Yeah.
Between, something not working right and titles being released wrong or labeled wrong.
Yep.
As far as the crossover, how you're supposed to read them, those were wrong. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, well.
Again, there's a reason that's not on my list.
Yep.
I'm going to move on to my next one, which was Spawn.
Wrong.
I enjoyed the beginning of it. I liked Spawn when it started out. I know you're not a big fan of Todd McFarlane.
Not exactly true.
No?
No. But go ahead, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay. Well, again, a buddy of mine picked it up. I didn't pick it when it started. A buddy of mine picked it up, and I read his copies. And I thought it started out pretty good myself. I read the first 50 or 60 issues before I was done with it.
It's quite an investment.
Yeah.
I think I only lasted about 18. It was very pretty to look at.
Yes.
But the writing was just, for me at least, didn't do anything. Like, it didn't go anywhere. There'd be the occasional issue that'd be pretty good, but it just didn't go anywhere, and I didn't get a sense for the characters. I didn't enjoy it very much. McFarlane himself, like, I loved his work on Amazing Spider-Man before he got his own book.
Right.
And he had inkers that sort of like kept him under control a little bit. I love that stuff. And once he got his own book with Spider-Man, I mean, he shouldn't have been writing it. He just should have been drawing it, because he's still, and it was an amazing Spider-Man artist. Like, for me, when I think of Spider-Man, like, that's my Spider-Man artist, is Todd McFarlane. I just love the look that he did. A lot of people have issues with it. I don't. I love it. And I actually had a unique experience. I was at Dragon Con. It's a convention in Atlanta I go to. Most years I go to. I started going to it in the 90s, stopped for a while, and then started going again in the early 2000s. I've been going strong ever since. I was at a Dragon Con, and he was there. And this would have been in the 90s, and he was doing a presentation, or he was doing a signing, or whatever. And then later on, I'm walking through the lobby of the hotel, and there's like this cluster of chairs, like any hotel lobby has. And he's sitting in one of these chairs, and he is surrounded on the ground by like probably 15 teenagers.
Wow.
All sitting there, listening to him, and he's telling them how to break into comics. But this is not a scheduled event.
Right.
He just did this out of the goodness of his heart to help out these kids. Don't laugh. This is cool. This is not funny.
No, that's very nice. That's I'm just, wow. That's.
I mean, here's this guy who was insanely popular, and this was at least after the Spider-Man book. I don't know if it was before Image. I just can't remember the timing of it.
Right.
But the guy was insanely popular at this point, and he took the time to sit down with these kids in the lobby. Again, not a scheduled event. He could have been off, I don't know, someone giving him caviar and whatever he wanted, I suppose. And he took time to go sit down with these kids and just coach them on how to get into the industry and get noticed. And I thought that was really cool.
Oh, that's very nice of him. That's very cool.
A lot of people have a lot of nasty things to say about him, but that's my experience with him.
Yes, I don't have a problem. My only problem with McFarlane is at a certain point, and again, part of it's, I used to read Wizard, I'll admit to that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my problem is that even when he stopped drawing, he was always still top artist in Wizard's poll, listing of the top 10 artists. And I think he didn't really seem to be doing anything, but he was still very. Everyone still loved everything he was doing, even though he wasn't doing anything. But
Wizard was a bit of a train wreck.
Yeah.
They were so far up the butt of their advertisers.
Yes.
That was, at least that, and I don't know that for a fact. That was just my take on it. Like, I would look and I'd be like, oh, look, DC didn't do a lot of advertising this month. Huh. All of DC's books went down in value. Huh. Again, that was just my observation. I don't know if that's a fact. I don't need any nasty letters, folks. I get enough as it is. But it was too much of a hype machine, especially after a while.
But yeah, I read it for quite a while, and I got to the point where you're at. Like, you know what? I still enjoy it for the most part, but you can definitely see the bias in what they're trying to prop up. So,
all right.
But next one, you mentioned earlier, the Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Peter David's run with what I refer to as the Professor Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Or some call him the Merge Hulk.
Yep.
But I really loved, especially when I loved before that, but I really loved when he became all merged into one personality, and he referred to himself as the Professor.
It was so good.
I thought that was a magnificent run.
I started right at the end of the Grey Hulk saga. Like, he had already been Mr. Fix-It out of Las Vegas.
Right.
But, like, the first time the Green Hulk came back, I remember the cover very distinctly. It, like, has the Green Hulk ripping something in half, and on one half's Banner, and the other half's the Grey Hulk, and the Green Hulk's, like, bursting through was kind of the thing. And I was like, oh, the Green Hulk's back? I heard about this. I'll read this. And boom, I was in. And I
think I started around the same time you did.
Yeah. And I stayed, I don't know. A long time. I don't know when I finally left. But, in fact, I just recently got on this weird kick with, again, Marvel Digital Unlimited. I just read a ton of Hulk comics. I started with John Byrne's run on Hulk, which was only 6 issues, which goes into, which is where the Hulk separates.
Right.
Into two beings. And then I read the Al Milgrom series run right after that, takes place after John Byrne, which is where the Grey Hulk's created, which then leads into Peter David. So I just now recently started reading the Peter David earliest Hulks, which I'd never read before. So pretty cool stuff.
Going back to current comics, have you read the current Hulk series?
No, I haven't read Hulk in years.
I read this last series he had running, and I liked it. It was, to me, it was very reminiscent of the Professor Hulk era.
Oh, really?
He calls himself Doc Green, and spoilers for the storyline that just ended. Someone shot Bruce Banner in the back of the head.
Oh, jeez.
Trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And he was healing, but he turned into the Hulk before he was healed all the way, and so they're afraid of brain damage. So they took him to Tony Stark and his half-brother, whoever it was. Again, I wasn't reading Iron Man. But the Extremis, that was in the last Iron Man movie. Yeah, they used the Extremis on him, and it caused him to become super intelligent as the Hulk. And so, yeah, he referred to himself as Doc Green. He didn't want to be called the Hulk anymore. He called himself Doc Green.
This wasn't Mark Waid's Indestructible Hulk, was it?
No, this was...
Because I don't know how recent that was, but I read a few issues of that.
Well, this is the one that just ended right before or led into Secret Wars.
Okay, so this has been okay. I know they restart this stuff all the time, so I can't keep up anymore. But okay, so I haven't read that now.
But
sounds cool.
But yeah, if you get a chance, you may want to check that out. I thought it was a good run. It was very reminiscent of Peter David's run on as the Professor Hulk. So
very cool.
Moving on to I don't know why I've got him so far down the list, but Superman.
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, have you?
Yeah. Wears his underwear on the outside, right?
Yeah, well, it used to.
Oh, okay.
That's one thing that annoys my wife about the current Superman and the Man of Steel movies. He doesn't have his underwear on the outside anymore. It's like, damn it, Superman has to have his underwear on the outside.
Agreed.
But the Byrne era of Superman, which started in the 86, all the way up through the death of Superman. A lot of people blame the death of Superman for the fall of comics in the 90s and the crash. I think they're wrong. I don't blame the death of Superman. It was things that spun out afterwards. It was all these publishers doing the multiple covers. At least in my opinion, the speculators. As far as Superman, the Byrne era, the death of Superman, the fallout of all that, I thought that was a magnificent. That's my Superman.
I love that era of Superman. I didn't read all the Byrne stuff. I came in later. I read Man of Steel, and I read some of the early Superman, but then for some reason I just lost track of it. And then I came back with issue 50. Oh, okay. So with the proposal when Clark and Lois got engaged. So for me, I went forward from there. Through the death and return and long hair mullet and anyway, all that stuff, no marriage, and kept going for quite a while. But probably stopped around 95, 96.
Yeah, just heads up, you may not want to say mullet to Michael Bailey.
I said it to Dan Jurgens.
Ouch. Oh no.
Dan and I were talking because Dan wrote Firestorm, so we interviewed Dan a couple times, and Dan has one of the best sense of humor in comic industry. He is a hoot, and so I know I kind of knew what buttons I could push. So I was like, okay, if it was again during our lightning round, I'm like, if you could get your picture taken with either Electric Blue Superman or Superman with a mullet, which one would you have? And it's supposed to be a lightning round, so you're supposed to answer really quick, and he's like, all right, stop the clock. It's like, first of all, it's not a mullet. I'm like, I know, I've dated the question. I was messing with you, man. But so, yes, it is not a mullet. But it's, when you say that, everyone knows. I guess I could say long hair Superman. Either way.
And it depends on who drew it. Some drew it looking kind of like a mullet.
Yeah.
But
artists had a lot to deal with that. Yeah. But anyway, I love that era. That's my era of Superman too. I love all that stuff. So, if I may, pimp something that's not technically my own, but I did appear on. You talked about what the fall of the comic industry was in the 90s.
Right.
I feel I have a pretty definitive handle on that, actually. I managed a comic book store during that era, and I've sort of been a student of that era over the years and tried to figure it all out. And I actually had a long discussion about it with Professor Alan Quarterman, or Professor Alan Middleton, really, but over on the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. And he did an episode called Relatively Geeky Presents, number 3. It's called The Boom or Bust. And the first half of the show is a bunch of guys talking about Turok Dinosaur Hunter number 1, which is pretty enjoyable. And the back half of the show is me and Alan sitting down and talking about the bust in the 1990s. And I prepare for stuff I'm on. I prepared for that one a whole bunch. Like, I'm throwing facts and figures and just talking about distributors and how, basically what, at least I believe happened to the industry in the 90s, and that's backed up with a lot of experience working in the industry. So, if anyone wants to check it out, it's out there.
Yeah, actually, I did listen to that one because I heard that you're going to be on there talking about the fall of the comic industry, so I had to check it out because, again, I enjoy listening to your discussions, and that era of comics, again, that's my era, so I definitely checked that out, and that was a good podcast. I definitely recommend that one also.
Thank you. I normally pretend to be really arrogant on the air. I'm not actually, and I'm genuinely proud of that one.
It's not what I hear from people. No, I'm just
don't believe everything you write in bathroom walls.
I'm sorry, I'll stop doing that.
I was going to say, damn you, Ryan Daly.
But yeah, I started right after Byrne stopped.
Like Ordway
writing
and Jurgens.
Yeah, I started actually buying it monthly around the Gangbuster period with Superman and his dual identity, and then I went back and the completest I am. I bought all the back issues of Superman Action Adventures. Superman. I picked up all the back issues and read them also. So
very cool.
But yeah, the whole Byrne and then the Triangle era.
Oh yeah, the Triangle era was good stuff, man.
I love the Triangle era. Again, there was some bad stories in there, sure. Long and that many creators, but overall, up through the mid, maybe even the late 90s, I thought that was a good era of Superman.
You know what? I said that I quit in 95, but now that I think about it, I came back by 97 for the Electric Blue Superman. I got sucked in for that, and I think I stayed around till like almost 2005. I think I did. Oh my gosh, it's like a sickness.
Oh yeah, I stuck around. I bought almost every DC and Marvel comic until 2007.
Wow.
And the only reason I stopped was because I'd gotten remarried and we'd moved to a different town further away from my comic shop, and it was either pay rent and put food on the table or buy comics. It was a hard decision, but I chose to put food on the table. And
I was going to say
it was a hard decision.
Right.
But I found other workarounds to get my fix, but it was a hard. In fact, Alex, I went to the same comic shop for 20 years. When I started collecting, I went to the same comic shop. And I was. In fact, I lived because the comic shop I went to was like about 15 miles away from my home.
Mm-hmm.
And for about 6 months, I moved up to that town. It was called Merced here in California. I had moved and lived in Merced for a while, so when I wasn't working, I'd walk across town to go to the comic shop just to hang out half the time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
it was fun shooting the breeze.
Oh yeah. In fact, I met a really good friend there. I'd heard rumors that the comic shop was going to be closing. I'm like, hey, I heard you guys are going to close down. He goes, no, we're not closing. Don't worry about that. I'm like, all right. And so I left, and another guy that happened to be in there at the same time, he followed me out, and he's like, yeah, I heard that same rumor. And we got talking. We ended up starting role-playing together and became really good friends. I went to his wedding when he got married years later.
Cool.
He came to my second wedding. He was one of my groomsmen. But yeah, no, you can meet really good people at the comic shop, and that's one thing I miss is going to the comic shop on a weekly basis. Because that was some good times.
It's sort of like Cheers.
Yes. Definitely.
I met my college roommate at the comic shop. I had known him in high school, but we barely knew of each other. But at the comic book shop, we became buddies, and sure enough, we ended up becoming roommates. Actually, all of my longest friends I met somehow through comic books for the most part.
And since this was a 2-hour conversation, we're going to go in and end this right here. The second part will be back next episode. Head Speaks will be back after these important messages.
This is an imaginary podcast, which may never have happened.
The Shortbox Showcase.
But then again may have. About a father and daughter. I'm Professor Allen.
And I'm Emily.
Who came from Ohio and talked about comics.
Walking Dead.
Tintin.
Black Lightning.
White Tiger. It tells of their rise to glory, when the great guests were yet to be booked.
Let's put it this way, Shogun Warriors wasn't going to win any Eisners.
And the great feats of editing not yet performed.
This is Ultra 7, this is Ultraman Jack, and this Ultraman Taro, and this Ultraman Leo, and this
of how they spoke at length.
Continuity is really the brainchild of nitpicking nerds the world over.
But to be fair, the best kind of confession is the Force confession.
And reviewed in brief tales that explore creatively the bounds of a given character's history.
Red Sun is wonderful with a very strange ending.
Of brilliant creators before their fall from grace. This is the era where Miller is at the height of his creative and artistic powers, and the ability of strong writing to encapsulate and transcend its time.
Flash of Two Earths by Gardner Fox.
This is an imaginary podcast. Aren't they all? Shortbox Showcase is part of the Relatively Geeky family of podcasts. Check us out on the web at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search in iTunes for Relatively Geeky or Shortbox Showcase. And remember, we're not experts.
We're just family.
The Ultraverse Network begins now. Over 20 years ago, Malibu Comics debuted the Ultraverse. It may not have lasted long, but the creativity and quality of its titles and creators caught many readers' imaginations when it first appeared and in the years since. This network of fans celebrates the fun and excitement of the Ultraverse and its awesome writers, artists, and characters. Featuring 3 ongoing podcasts covering a variety of topics including Nightman and Solitaire, our blog will feature regular coverage of The Strangers, Sludge, Firearm, Ultraforce, and all your other favorites. Look for Ultraverse Network on iTunes and visit our website at ultraversepodcast.com. We are giving Ultraverse fandom a jumpstart.
And now back to Head Speaks.
On your mark, get set. We're riding on the internet.
The internet is really, really great.
For porn.
I got a fast connection so I don't have to wait.
For porn.
What? There's always some new site.
For porn.
I browse all day and night.
For porn.
It's like I'm surfing at the speed of light.
For porn.
Internet porn, Roman orgy scenes. Internet porn, dominatrix queens. Internet porn, girl on girl on girl on girl on girl on guy on sheep.
You're going surfing on the internet.
Where is Head going?
On this episode of Where's Head Going, I'm going to continue on with my podcast that I listen to section. This week, in honor of our special guest star, I'm going to talk a little bit about his podcast, the Fire and Water Podcast. The Fire and Water Podcast is mostly a weekly podcast. It's where our buddy, the Irredeemable Shag, and his buddy Rob Kelly gets together and they talk about Firestorm and Aquaman. Currently, Shag is talking about the original Fury of Firestorm series that ran 100 issues. They're up around issue 20 or so. And meanwhile, his buddy Rob Kelly is talking about the current Aquaman series being published by DC Comics. So every month when a new issue of Aquaman comes out, they cover the new issue of Aquaman, an issue of Firestorm. And then in the off time, when they're not covering those comics, they have a bunch of other podcasts they're doing. Another part of it is the Who's Who in the DCU section, where they cover DC Comics, well, Who's Who, a definite guide to the DC Universe, which was a series that started in 86, and it ran 26 issues, and then they had a couple updates, a loose leaf binder update, and some other series, but they're covering each issue of the different series. Currently they're on the 1987 or 87 or 88? I think it's 87. 1987 update for Who's Who. Excellent podcast. And then they've also got other where they got their geek podcast where they talk about something geeky. They have got the Rob Kelly does a Film and Water podcast where either him or him and a guest talks about some movie they like. Shag does the HeroCast podcast, which is a part of this, where every 5-10 years he talks about role-playing games, which I really enjoy whenever they do one. But anyways, that's all I got to say about that. That's the Fire and Water podcast, and also the Who's Who podcast, which is a part of that. Available on iTunes and wherever else you get your podcast at. You can also check out, as Shag said earlier, you can check out his website at firestormfan.com. But that is where Head's going.
Mail time.
Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
The mail's here.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
You've got mail. And we'll start today's episode of Talking with Head with an email. The first and, only email we have is from our buddy Gene Hendricks. The subject is Crisis of Personal Information. And his email reads, Aaron, let me start off by saying that you did a great job summarizing the Crisis on Infinite Earth storylines on the latest episode. That is not an easy thing to do, but you managed to get across the behind-the-scenes reasons for the event, that outline the event itself, and the aftermath in a concise manner. Well done. Now, you did ask for feedback on your recent series of talking about your kids, so let me address that. I really have to applaud you for your bravery and putting so much of yourself out there. That can't be easy to talk about, and while you have tackled stuff like that in the past, but I still think that it takes guts. I find this kind of thing to be interesting, but even if I didn't, it's your show, so you get to talk about what you want. Smiley face. Gene, who's from the Hammer Strikes podcast, the Quantum Cast, and Anime Freaks podcast. Well, thank you very much for your email, Gene. Let me address a couple of your points here. First of all, thank you for the compliment and enjoying the way I handled the Crisis on Infinite Earths. I really love that storyline. I think it's really great, as you may have noticed from my talking about it. So I'm glad that everything I tried to get across came across fine. As far as the second part, again, I'm glad that you're liking the portion where I talk about myself and my kids and family and what have you. But again, as you say, it is my show. I can do what I want. And I will do what I want because it is my show. But I do like to hear from you guys. And if you guys don't like to hear it, too many people says it's boring or it's too, TMI, I guess as the kids say, well then, maybe I'll cut down that kind of stuff. But until I hear otherwise, I'm going to keep going like I'm going. But again, thank you for writing in, Gene. And everyone out there listening, I definitely recommend Gene's podcasts. I listen to the Hammer Strikes and the Quantum Cast. I'm not so much into anime, so I don't check that one out. Plus, I just don't have enough time in my damn day. But, no, definitely check out his other podcast. On the Quantum Cast, he also every once in a while has a segment or a podcast called Comic Book Fight Club. And I was recently on their latest episode of that with talking about the A-Team versus Suicide Squad. And I was on there because my other podcast is a Task Force X podcast. But definitely check out Gene's podcast. And like Gene, if you like what you hear, write in. Let me know. As I say, you can email me at head at headspeaks.com. Or if you want, you can send an MP3 file. You can play it on the air. You can go to the forums, the Facebook, Google+. I hardly ever check that one. I do once in a while. But anyways, let me know what you think. That's the only email I have for today. Now let's go and go to Facebook likes and posts. These people that commented or liked on my Facebook. We have our buddy Gene Hendricks, Firestorm fan, who is the, you heard earlier, with the Fire and Water podcast. Tim Wallace, Shag Matthews, again, you may recognize him from earlier in the episode. He runs Firestorm fan. Amanda Downing, William Passmore, Michelle Moss, and AJ Flynn. Thank you guys for liking my stuff and commenting and what have you. It's really great having contact from listeners and other people interested in the show. But that'll do it for this episode of Head Speaks. Again, my final thoughts are, well, if you guys like what you're hearing, write in, let me know. Also, go to Stitcher, if you use Stitcher or iTunes, and rate the show. Leave some feedback on there, because that's the only way to get other people to find my show is to leave feedback or rate me on iTunes and Stitcher to get my ratings up. And again, leave me some feedback and let me know what you think. I love hearing from you guys. And that'll do it for this episode. Stay tuned for After the Credits for my, after credits song. This week, since I did talk about Alexis at the beginning, I let her pick my final song for the day. And she, after going from G.I. Joe to Batman to Superman, we finally settled on Spider-Man. So I'm going to play Spider-Man, played by the Ramones, from the album Saturday Morning Cartoons. I remember this coming out in the 90s. I thought it was a great album. It's called Saturday Morning Cartoons Greatest Hits, and it's Spider-Man. So go ahead and stay tuned for After the Credits for that. And until next time, remember, Head has spoken. Thank you for listening to another fantastic episode of Head Speaks. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, let me know. Drop me an email to head@headspeaks.com or visit our home at head.headspeaks.com. You can also visit and talk with me on Facebook and Google+, both under Head Speaks. You can also send an MP3 file with your thoughts, and I can play that on the air. And you can also get more of me on my other podcasts. Be sure to listen to Task Force X, where monthly I look at John Ossinger's Suicide Squad and Paul Kuppenberg's Checkmate comics from the 80s and early 90s. Also, over on G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast, my podcasting friends Ryan Daly and Kyle Benning, along with myself, are looking at all of the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero comics, and related titles from Marvel and IDW. All of my headcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher, along with the respective blogs and my main page at headspeaks.com. All comments, thoughts, and opinions expressed on Head Speaks are owned wholly by the speaker of said comments, and do not express the opinions of Head Speaks, unless, of course, I'm the one making the comments. Head Speaks, Task Force X, and G.I. Joe, A Real American Headcast, are all part of the Headcast family. So, join us next month for another wonderful episode of Head Speaks. Until then, I'll see you in the funny pages. Good night. Now, here is Spider-Man by the Ramones.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web in his eyes, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Yes, he's strong, this is bud. He's got radioactive blood. Can swing from a thread, take a look overhead. Here there, there goes the Spider-Man. In the chills of the night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, you rise in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. When the man is ignored, action is his reward. Look out, here comes Spider-Man. Look out! Let's go! In the chill of the night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Well, the man is ignored, action is his reward to him. Like it's a great big bang up, whenever there's a hang-up, you'll find Spider-Man.
Hello, this is Aaron, back once again. I'm here at the very end with a special little outro message. My daughter, who I talked about at the very beginning, Alexis Moss, wanted to say a few things on the podcast, so here she is.
I'm here today to talk about my new comic, Fireburst, and Dark Girl. Dark Girl is like she can turn invisible, and she is so awesome. She even can sneak on villains. So that's like totally cool. And Fireburst is Firestorm's daughter. Next to Freeze, Freeze is Fireburst's sister, and she is Ice Powers. And she's a villain, and she does not like her that much. So as I'm saying that that they get mixed up together, and then they have to work as a team to find out which one of them is gonna win the battle, because on the first issue of them, Fireburst is going to find Freeze in her secret lab, but the bad news is that she gets caught, and then she turns into ice again. She turns into ice like 3 times, I think. Yeah, 3 times. Well, I'm working on it. Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.